Hello and welcome to this edition of Bayou Time. I'm your host, Keith Whiteside, licensed clinical social worker with Terrible Home Care. Very glad to be here. I'm very thankful that you're joining me. And always, when we get updates, especially from those people helping to make decisions about what our constituents need, welcome back to the show, Senator Mike Fesi. Thanks for being here, Big Mike.
Glad to be here and glad to be able to sit and talk about everything.
I know that's right. And so it's one of those things that we've been hearing about this legislative session that's come through. And give us a little bit of this wrap up. A lot of controversy going on, but maybe give us a little bit of the wrap up from the session.
Well, I guess the biggest part of the controversy was raising the cap on the expenditure limit.
Okay.
And in doing that process, there was a lot of controversy. People thinking we were growing government by raising the cap was increasing the debt.
Okay.
But raising the cap was fixing it with a $2 billion excess. We needed to do some things around the state to help out, so we needed to raise the cap. And so it was a back and forth situation on whether to raise it or not. The Senate was all in because we know that we need to do a lot of things in the state to get the taxpayer their money back and make a lot of improvements throughout the state.
And so that $2 billion, it's not money that's come from taxpayers. It's not money. It's $2 billion that's in excess that we had to decide what to do with.
Well, I guess you could say some came from tax because if it's some of it's federal funding, that's still taxpayer money.
Right.
But
right.
but the thing about it is the extra money is it was created because the prior 3 years since I've been a senator, with any extra money coming down from the COVID situation, from the hurricanes and all that, we made sure we spent it on one-time expenses.
Okay.
With one-time money, you always spend it on one-time expenses and don't grow government. So
Right.
over those years, we really didn't grow government. So it created an excess that from doing a good job. But now we need to take the taxpayers' money, give it back to them by fixing things in the state that are well needed.
And again, very, very important to realize that it's a lot of work to have to figure out and agree on where that money goes.
That's the big point. One of the biggest things, we put a lot of money into infrastructure, into roads and streets and bridges, and a lot of people, I remember we had to fund, this year we're having to fund millions of dollars just to pay lawsuits for potholes. So I mean, we need to get our roads fixed. We need to make it happier to live in Louisiana. We need to make it better to bring outsiders back to Louisiana.
Yeah, and look, it doesn't take a brain surgeon or a senator to figure out that it's difficult to come into the state because our roads just need so much work, and we are finally funding those road projects that needed to take place, and now we're moving forward with some of those.
Right, and then what we did do is a lot of people didn't know is way back from Hurricane Katrina, we had a big liability of $1.4 billion that was owed by the New Orleans for building those levees. To whereas if he wouldn't have paid it off over the last couple of years, that money would have ended up costing the state $100 million a year for the next 30 years.
Wow. And so very smart to be able to pay that out, right?
Right,
And
right,
finish paying that.
right.
It's a great life lesson for anybody. Pay off the stuff that you can on time so it doesn't impact you over time.
Correct.
$100 million over 30 years.
That's a lot of money.
That's way too much money.
And
to
that
have to
was
fund
the deal that was able to be cut with the federal government, as long as we come up with that money.
Right.
And we had the money, and we made sure that took place.
that we used it for that. I know we only have a little bit of time left in this particular segment. Can we talk about Ezekiel's law?
Yeah. That was a very important subject to me, being Ezekiel, what happened to him here in Terrebonne Parish. And basically what I did after the last session last year, I held meetings with and brought in groups that had never come together, which was the Sheriff's Association, Chief of Police Association, DAs, judge, just brought all of these in with Child Services, brought them together to hold meetings to see, because as I investigated and looked into things, I saw that nobody was communicating. Nobody knew what this problem was. Nobody knew what that problem was. And by bringing them together, we were starting to solve problems. So it was simple to come up with that law that now they have to meet
Right.
4 times a year and come together and solve problems, which they had never done before.
Recap, if you don't mind, the situation with Ezekiel for some people that maybe don't know.
Ezekiel was a little 2-year-old boy that was beat to death by the mother's boyfriend and put in a garbage can. And the father, from what I understand on the record, show he was supposed to get custody of the child in the near future.
Wow. And so very often there's these custody issues or these custody battles, but it's not just that some of these bad things happen, it's just that these different entities need to be able to coordinate and communicate how to make sure that we can kind of help make sure these things don't happen.
Basically, what's written in my bill, no one agency can cure all the problems with child abuse
Abuse and
problems.
neglect, right?
So, not one agency's at fault, but if we bring them all together, they can solve the problem, and that's what Ezekiel's law does.
I love it. And I love being able to take a situation like that, a very difficult, very traumatic situation and event for our community, and be able to help people understand, listen, we're going to take that situation and we're going to find a way to be better at it for the next time something similar may happen. And we're going to communicate much better.
And what I got in place is we'll monitor how this helps,
Right.
and we may have to add a few things down the road. And as
Right.
we add those things, we'll get it better and better to where hopefully we can almost prevent it totally.
And that's a great idea. And that's what we want to do. We want to be able to have enough of those agencies and those entities that need to be involved communicating. And I love the fact that we're kind of monitoring that to be able to see, is that effective? Are we able to move forward? And if we need to tweak it a little bit to make sure that we can rid that abuse and neglect, because we need a lot more resources to go into that. Always involved in making sure that you're really standing up for some people that need help and fighting for those bills that really need to be passed. Let's talk a little bit about this DWI bill that's been going on now, as you mentioned to me, for about 5 years.
Yeah, it's a bill to stop the recidivism of constant DWI problems with people just over and over, 3 to 4 DWIs. And what I did it was very important to me because we had the 3 young ladies from Nichols that got killed by a 4th DWI problem. And so what this does is it's with the interlock systems that go into vehicles that has a little bit more rules and regulations that try to train people not to drive drunk.
Wow. And again, we see recidivism as a bad thing in a lot of different areas, but when it comes to these people that are repeat offenders as drunk drivers, we only see a bad situation coming in the future if we don't try to stop that. Is there something specific in the bill that says after 1 or after 2 or after how that works?
What we did is usually the first DWI offense is not required right away. You just don't get to drive for X amount of days,
Wow.
whatever the judge puts it at.
Right.
What this does, it gives them the ability to drive the next week
Okay.
or whenever they get this the system installed.
The interlock system
The
in the
interlock
vehicle.
system. And one of the big things was they said, oh, he's just a proponent on selling interlock systems. No, I'm a proponent for saving lives in Louisiana because this particular law that we passed that the governor still, has to on his desk to sign,
Right.
and hopefully he does so. In other states, it's dropped the recidivism by 25%. I mean, so our problems rose 30% since COVID on the average. And so we're going in the wrong direction. So that's why this bill I felt was so important to know that this offender that killed these 3 young ladies, that if he would have had that system in there, he even said in his testimony that if he had had it in there, it would have never happened. But he had his time was up. It was time to take it out, and he went back to drinking and driving, and this is what happens.
Right. And again, that interlock system is very specific that the car won't drive when you do the breathalyzer in your vehicle. It won't go if you're registered a certain amount.
Right. And not only that, the new system, what this law does, it calculates on how many times that he tried to drive and be denied. And so if you don't see that declining, then he don't need to take it out. You see,
Right,
and
right.
so what it does is starts training and changing the game. And then if you start from day one, first DWI, it's proven fact that it cuts down the use of drunk drivers driving because they end up. We got Uber nowadays and everything else.
Yeah,
So
we got so many other options. Drinking and driving and deaths from that have got to be able to go away. We've got way too many options. But I love the fact that we can monitor to see when more help is needed. That's one of the other things that the interlock system does.
That's it.
It says, you know what, this person tried to drive 4 times in a 5-day period when the car said, no, you can't. That is a red flag. That says, no, we need to do something else. And hopefully this bill will get passed. It's sitting on the governor's desk
Sitting
right
on
now.
the governor's desk, and if he signs it, I think it'll be a big change for saving lives in Louisiana.
Yeah, we certainly need, because we don't ever know when somebody else and what they are doing or not doing can negatively impact. And imagine just, if you will, the enormity of those 3 young women from Nichols, not only their lives lost,
The families.
the impact on those families.
Oh, it's terrible.
And listen, as a social worker who works with trauma and traumatic individuals and victims, I've been a part of that. And it is just, it's a terrible thing to be able to have to be involved in that from all of the different agencies and organizations who have to do that. So,
And what the bill also does is for someone who's on limited income, if they prove they had limited income, the cost is half.
wow.
And so it's not that we're pushing to make anybody make any more money. There's a number of companies across the state that install these, so it's not you can get it done wherever you make the deal if you do get a DWI. But the important thing is to use it to understand that you don't want to do it again.
Yeah, and if I'm to understand right, some of these 3 ladies that lost their lives are looking to get a degree in education. Tell us about this teacher pay raise that we've talked about.
On the teacher pay raise, the way part of the controversy in the closing out the session was we got them a $2,000 this year pay raise. It's not a permanent pay raise,
Okay.
but we did do a resolution to say that next year it should be put in as permanent.
So a one-time $2,000 pay raise, much needed to thank our teachers, especially going through what they had to with COVID. We all had to deal with COVID, right? But imagine trying to be a teacher and teaching and educate through that very difficult and complicated process. And so thank you very much for y'all pushing that through, for all of those people that voted yes for that, and certainly hoping that we can look forward to that going in to that pay raise maintaining and sustaining itself. Let's talk a little bit about maybe the coastal restoration projects that got funded.
We got plenty of projects funded. Actually, this year was well appropriated for a lot of work to do. Hopefully, pretty soon we're getting close to getting the Morganza to the Gulf completed.
Completed with 100%
and
completion.
then it's to be about raising it to the next height. So it's going well.
I've been excited about having those individuals from the levee board on to talk about that. I love the fact that they're never satisfied. I love the fact that, and listen, we've raised a lot of money. Finally, we're getting some governmental money as well, state and federal funds for that. But I'm so excited, like, hey, we're at 15, we need to get to 18. Once we get to 18, we need to get to 20. Then we need to get to 25. Like, I love the fact that they're always wanting to do that. I am fine with us always asking for more money for those things.
It's definitely a great impact on saving our community. That gives us such a good thing that hardly, we go through all these hurricanes with no major flooding, if any at all.
Right.
And that our insurance rates for flood insurance needs to come down because we can prove it now because we've been through many years of storms with no major flooding.
What a great segue. You'd be the host of the show. Speaking of insurance, that's one of those things that's been such a hot topic. Can we talk about maybe some of the things that y'all addressed in the legislative session?
Well, what we did, we put more money into the incentive program from the special session that worked after Katrina. So we used the same kind of procedure to bring companies in. But I don't think that's the only thing we need to do because we did pass the Fortified roof program that the insurance companies will have to give a rebate to anybody who fortifies their roof. Now, Fortified is really just a name, but what you're doing is one of the major things to do is when you change your roof is to put ice and water shield underneath the shingles, and that way if your shingles do blow off, no water infiltration could get into your home, which caused probably 85% of the damage in most houses that were majorly damaged after Ida.
That's the damage at my house. And it's the damage in your buildings. I mean, we know that firsthand. And so what a great idea to make sure that we're looking forward to safeguarding, even if some of those shingles come off.
And far as vinyl siding versus hardy plank, that makes a big difference. The hardy plank is way much, more strength to hold up to, the hurricanes. Being a home builder for many years, it's all about, I built my camp in 2000 on Grand Isle, and still in good shape. And it's been through many a storm since the year 2000.
And it went through Ida.
That's right.
And we saw what those winds were
Yep.
as we watched those cameras. And again, it talks about the fact that listen to what the home builder suggests. Listen to what those professionals are telling you about what to do. And you did it personally for yourself. I love it. Talk about 2.0, risk rating 2.0 at all? Did that come up?
Well, that's an important factor that we got to get our federal government to fix.
Right.
One of my proponents that I've been talking to and trying to push, what I think is, this is my idea.
Okay.
If you have a home loan and you're in a flood zone, you have to have flood insurance.
Okay.
Everybody might not like this, but I think that a lot of things flooded that's not in flood zones.
Right.
So if you got a home loan and have to have flood insurance, whether you're in a flood zone or not, would decrease the rates so much across the country. It would be, the rates would probably go back down to that $150 to $200 for flood insurance.
Wow. It would
But that
balance
way
that
you
out.
spread the risk.
Right.
Everybody's not paying a whole lot. And because look how many homes that are flooded that FEMA has to come bail out year after year that wasn't in a flood zone.
Yeah, because they can't
So you
afford it.
just never know when
Right.
you're going to get a 8 to 10 inch rain in a place that can't handle it.
Right. And I like that. One of the other things that you guys spent some time and energy is that you found some money for some of our local museums. Tell me about that.
Well, what I did is I've been pushing to get things really up to date in downtown and also around Houma and Terrebonne and Lafourche. And the military museum has been a big thing. My dad was in World War II. In the Pacific Theater with landing craft, running the landing craft on Okinawa and Iwo Jima. So the military museum means a lot to me. And when they built the new building, they didn't finish the second and third floor.
Right.
Well, we put in the budget to where they're going to be able to finish the second and third floor now.
Wow. I love it. I will tell you, case in point, my dad's 85th birthday, the one thing we have planned in the community is all together go to Regional Military Museum.
That's great.
So we
because
appreciate it.
What I like to push is a lot of people don't know that the first Air Force One is sitting in that museum.
It is. The very first Air Force One is there.
Yep.
We only got a little bit of time left. Tell me about the African American Museum as well.
I know they had a lot of damage to their location,
Right.
and I was able to get them some funding to hopefully do whether they want to move or whatever they want to do. So we got them some money too.
Yeah, I love it. It's one of those things where I like the fact that you're always fighting for people like our teachers. You're fighting for our history and making sure that we have those people, generations to come, being able to see some of the value that we have. And that's for all the people that you represent. And so we appreciate the hard work, the effort and energy, the fight sometimes that it takes to get those things done. But we certainly appreciate the update. So thanks for coming on and sharing with us all the things that are happening legislative and in your office.
Thank you.
All right, we appreciate that. So we are done with this particular session. Very glad Senator Mike Fesi been able to give us some time and all the things that he fights for, and so we appreciate his time today. And that will do it for this particular segment of Bayou Time. Don't go anywhere. A whole lot more local programming right here on HTV.